order at 6:08 p.m. Roll call, please.
Director Proctor,
Here.
Director Mondes,
Here.
Director Nitter. Here. Chair Bernworth,
Here.
Vice Chair Goodsell,
Here.
Director Berger,
Here.
Director Garcia.
Here.
Um,
Would everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll do the administration of oath of office to our new board member of the Imperial Valley Healthcare District.
I, and state your name,
I, James Garcia,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United
to
States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well
and that I will well
and faithfully
and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, James. We've been anxiously awaiting for you for quite some time now.
Number 7 has arrived.
So if you'd like to say a few words now, you have the floor.
Yes, I'd just like to let everybody know I am humbled and extremely proud and honored to be able to serve in this capacity. Looking forward to doing tremendous work for our community. The work that we're venturing on is going to affect everybody's life in our community. And I'm looking forward to working with this awesome group to establish a health district that is second to none. Thank you.
And so now I'll like to report on a closed session. A motion was made by Director Berger and a second by Vice Chair Goodsell with the 6-0 vote to appoint an interim general counsel services to Procopio. And as you'll notice, she was up on the dais. She would like to introduce herself.
Good evening. My name is Adriana Ochoa. I'm a partner at Procopio, and we're happy to be here assisting the board with legal services.
At this time, in the case, or consider approval of the agenda. In case of emergency, items may be added to the agenda by majority vote of the board of directors. An emergency is defined as a work stoppage, crippling disaster, or other activity that severely impairs public health, safety, or both. Items on the agenda may be taken out of sequence order as their priority is determined by the board. The board may take action on any item appearing on the agenda. Do you have a motion to consider?
Second.
I have a motion by Goodsell and a second by Berger. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we'll move on to item 7, public comment time. This time the board will hear comments on any agenda item and on any item not on the agenda. If any person wishes to be heard, they shall stand, address the board, identify yourself, and state the subject of comment. Time limit for each speaker is 3 minutes. A total of 15 minutes shall be allocated for each item. The board may find it necessary to limit total time allowable for all public comment on items not appearing on the agenda at any one meeting to 1 hour. Persons desiring longer public comment time and/or action on specific items shall contact the secretary and request that the item be placed on the agenda for the next regular meeting. Do we have any public comments here tonight?
Hi, my name is Kevin Smith, and I live in Raleigh. I want to talk to you guys today about mergers and acquisitions, because that's what your job is going to be. I don't know if any of you guys are merger and acquisitions experts, that have any kind of expertise in that field. Our coalition has heard from mergers and acquisitions agent specialist today. His take is that hospitals are among the most sophisticated organizations to merge due to corporate cultures, systems integrations issues, accounting, systems integrations, pension plans for employees, employee contracts, physician group contracts, contracts for service providers, and contracts with insurers, and on and on and on. There are dozens of licenses that also have to be transferred to a new entity, not to mention all of those legal agreements that sort out all sorts of liabilities that have gone on in the past. You would have to hire 3 mergers and acquisitions groups, because you have to have one for each one of the different entities. And because you have to protect each one of those groups. We're told that a proper mergers and acquisitions would take approximately 3 years to accomplish, and most likely have to be approved by antitrust lawyers from the state and the federal government. Even after accomplishing all of that, it's unlikely to accomplish the goals of 918 by providing more revenue from increased reimbursements. We've been advised that, in fact, in many instances, the reimbursements go to the lower of the contracts. So if you have several different contracts between 2 hospitals, your provider would choose the lower number to reimburse you. This bill needs desperate legal fixes which only you people can provide. You guys have to make the decision to go back to the Assemblyman to fix the bill that's there. And there's not enough time to do all of this. The law currently calls for Pioneers and Heffernan to be dissolved by January 1st. So what happens if all of the licenses aren't transferred? What if you can't bill the insurance companies because the contracts haven't been transferred? Then you're not going to have any revenue stream. So if Pioneers and Heffernan are dissolved and there's no adequate voter-approved funding, what do you do then? So the only way you can fix all of these problems is go back to the Assemblyman and have him fix the bill that allows more time and allows life to go on. So anyway, I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public comments?
Good evening, my name is Pete Rodriguez. Welcome to all you appointed officials finally get signed in after a delay from the county. Welcome you, Mr. Garcia. I'm for going forward. Any more foot dragging delays, we're never going to get a district united together. I think by all of you, I trust all of you to work in good faith. It can be people that want opposition to changes and all that. It's just delaying the eventual merger. Merger that is needed for both hospitals to financially survive, to provide services to the residents of Imperial County. I'm fortunate that I'm blessed with great health, but I'm not with other residents who are not, who cannot afford to go to San Diego, who cannot afford to go to other hospitals for treatment, they're stuck here. And eventually, I hate to say it, will die here because they're not receiving top quality care. You get what you get because you live here. You're at a certain poverty level. There's a group that can always afford to go to San Diego, they will survive a little bit longer. I believe and I trust with your intelligence, your integrity. All of you have come with integrity. All of you come, were appointed for a reason. Open your minds and your hearts to every opportunity. Delaying this merger is not an answer to the community of the residents that live here. It's time for us to stop playing football. Stop playing that boulder ring game. I've seen enough finger pointing in media I get tired of reading it. Come here with an open mind and let's work together and stay united. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Catalina Santos-Sapigan. A lot of you know me by Katie. You can just rely on Katie. I'm here because all of you were picked for a very, very important decision that's actually a matter of life. This is not a game. This is not a football game. It's not the Brawley game. It's not the El Centro game. And then just to put it in perspective is that I want you to know that we cheer for everybody that does good, okay? And Mr. Rodriguez, I do want you to know that your coach for the Spartans happens to be Mr. Baker, which you know is from Raleigh. And you have the athletic director there that happens to be my nephew, Josh Weiss. So cheer for everybody. It's not a matter of a ball game. It's a matter about life. And so one of the things that we're asking all of you is for transparency. Transparency means honesty and respect. And this is not a delay and this is not a game. We are not asking for a delay. We're asking for you to do your due diligence. What is the outcome of trying to rush something when it could be a matter of not having a hospital? No. And then you're going to be forced to go to San Diego. So we've been trying not to delay, but give you as much information as possible as we can at the Pioneers for More Hospital. All of our board members, except for one, have health experience, have businesses, and we know quite a bit. And we want to share. We don't want you to make the mistakes that has happened before and it happened to Calexico. Now we have to tell Centro. Because of their disparity and because of their mistakes, they got the whole county involved. You know, they're asking us about our seismic. All of that, we're paying ourselves there. We didn't go ask for anybody, but now we're all incorporating this. Now, we went to LAFCO, do it the proper way that we have to do it, and we did. But El Centro went the first time and they said yes, and then afterwards they turned around and got Mr. Garcia involved. Mr. Garcia is not an expert. When you look at it, it's a mess. It's a total mess. So we're asking to repair it so like that you don't dissolve two hospitals that are viable right now. Well, Raleigh is viable right now. We can't afford it. Then you don't have a choice. They're going to go to San Diego. So one of the things that was done, and we all talked about having to do a feasibility study. Kaufman Hall agreed to do it. We also, the Board of Supervisors agreed to do one too. And LAFCO went ahead and did it. The Board of Supervisors agreed to get a mediator to find out what was going on, what would be the best thing to do to expand. Now, on that agreement, it stated that both the three hospitals, Calexico, El Centro, and Raleigh, would agree, and they had to agree to get the results out to the public. Raleigh has agreed. Calexico and El Centro has not agreed to share the information. I want to share with you, and I'll give you one copy. You can make a copy there that I just got a little while ago about the agreement. And if you need more information, you need to get that information. Kaufman Hall, you need to get that information. They're saying because it's from a private party. Well, if you volunteer, you need to have transparency, honesty, and respect. That's all we're asking. We're not asking for anything less than that. You need to get. You also need to get the Scott Phillips. Why is it that we're just getting tidbits from El Centro? Brawley's throwing everything that they can at you, and you need to make a very wise decision. And one of the things that I would like to share with you is that I noticed that you were voting on your DNO, right? The directors of, the Board of Directors liability.
Public discussion.
Okay, well, you really need to get that, because a lot of people are looking at that. You have a lot on your plate to do and make the right decision. It's not about delaying, it's about doing your due diligence. So please think about it. The other thing is, that there again, we're trying to help. Yes, I have a letter of invite for you from Raleigh, that they're willing to host any future district meetings for you, and they have anything ready for you. You just call Hybrid Salcido, and they will make reservations for you whenever you need it. So I at least want to sit ahead and get that work for you. So if you have any questions, I will leave this for you, and we need to move on. And let's just, like I said, do your due diligence, and we really appreciate it. It's not about delaying, it's about doing the right thing for the whole county, not Raleigh, not the Centro, not Calexico. Okay? For the whole county. Thank you. I'll leave this with Thomas.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. Since we're talking about transparency, I was wondering if the board has received the original report from the Wardward Consulting Group that was done for Pioneer Zone. It was, there were concerns about default going in the bonds. Didn't receive it. I think in the spirit of transparency, it would be good if the Wardward Consulting Group report, the original report, not the second cleaned up report, we're giving to the board also. Thank you.
Do you have any other public comments? Can you state your name?
Oh, I'm sorry, Keith Bradkowski.
Do you have any other public comments? Do you have any other public comments via Zoom?
No one via Zoom.
Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Any member of the board, staff, or public may request that items from the consent calendar be removed for discussion. Items so removed shall be acted upon separately immediately following approval of items remaining on the consent calendar. Is there any motion to approve the consent calendar?
And so moved.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, passes 7-0. Board comments, reports on meeting and events attended by directors, and authorization for director attendance at upcoming meetings and events/director comments. Do any of my directors have any comments they would like to make at this time? Seeing none? Move on to discussion and/or action items. Item A, discussion and/or action, the Kaufman Hall study in Imperial County LAFCO base study.
For the base study, we have somebody via Zoom, and we'll be posting the study on the channel. I can hear you. There we go.
I can hear you now.
You guys, nods from the dais.
Perfect, now we can hear you.
Shall we try again from the start?
Yeah, can you please start over?
You're missing.
We're missing a member and still bringing it back.
Okay, Matt, we're ready.
Okay. Thank you very much, members of the board. Again, Matt Dakota, principal with PhD Urban Economics, presenting on the fiscal analysis that we put together for the LAFCO. If I can have the next slide, please. Just an outline of what we'll be talking about. So the purpose of the analysis, identification of the annual funding gaps for Pioneers and Centro, the consolidation scenarios that we analyzed. We'll talk a little bit about the data sources, some of the key assumptions, then the estimated annual funding gaps under option 1 and option 2, and then the estimated annual parcel levies needed to fill the funding gaps for options 1 and option 2. Next slide, please. So again, the purpose of the analysis was to ultimately get to that point where we could estimate what the annual parcel tax levy needed to fill the hospital system funding shortfall would be and sustain operations under the 2 options. Next slide, please. To identify the existing annual funding gaps for the 2 hospitals, we used their published budget documents for 2016-17 through 2023-24 fiscal years. And those documents had the actual audited amounts for 16-17 through 2022.
I think we're left the issue. Oh, really?
You moved
They can't
it.
hear you, right?
No,
That's
you
it.
Actually, we can hear you. You should probably mute.
Tomas, go in there and mute them.
Okay. Continue?
Please.
Okay. So we had the actuals for 16-17 through 21-22. We had unaudited figures for 22-23, and then the budgeted amounts for 23-24 fiscal year. And over that 7-year period, Pioneers had a 7-year average deficit of about $990,000 per year, and El Centro had an average deficit of about $9.7 million per year. Next slide, please. So we looked at 2 scenarios. The first one, option 1, was a full countywide consolidation of Pioneers, El Centro, and Heffernan. And then option 2 was a variation on that, that was a consolidation countywide without having El Centro Medical Center and the city of El Centro included in that. Next slide, please. So key data sources, as I mentioned, the hospital budget documents provided a lot of the information. We also had a number of meetings with Pioneers and El Centro staff to gain their insights and input to what we were doing. We had access to the Kaufman Hall 2020 study, and then also the executive summary that they produced more recently in 2023. There was information from Steve Clark and Associates that Pioneers provided to us. That's a consultant working on Pioneers' behalf. And then the County of Imperial provided us with taxable parcel data that we used in calculation of that parcel tax levy. Next slide, please. So key assumptions for... Somebody in the audience needs to mute themselves, please. Key assumptions for option 1 were first that there would be potential economies of scale in creation of a countywide taxing district. In terms of economies of scale for administrative costs, we assume that there would be a 25% savings on existing Pioneers and El Centro expenditures just for those administrative functions. Then there were savings and efficiencies identified by Kaufman Hall in their executive summary document of about $13.3 million per year. We needed to account for new long-term debt service that the consolidated district would take on, primarily for seismic improvements to the Pioneers facilities of around $130 million. But also about $20 million in IT upgrades necessary to integrate the systems of the two hospitals. That was going to add about $12.2 million per year. The distressed hospital loan repayment, each of the hospitals received loans. Their total repayments are about $9.3 million per year, and those last for 6 years. So it's not a long-term repayment, but needs to be accounted for in the first 6 years. There was an estimated reduction in supplemental payments that could occur as a result of the two systems being combined. That was $2.2 million. That was from Clark and Associates. There was a potential revenue increase, increased reimbursements due to having a single hospital system serving the county of about $5 million per year. And then we assume that the current property tax revenues that are annual revenues collected and allocated to Heffernan Memorial Hospital District of about $850,000 per year would be put into the new consolidated system. Next slide, please. So for option 2, without having the combination with Pioneers and ECRMC, we assume that there were no new economies of scale, and that the creation of the countywide taxing district would exclude parcels within the city of El Centro. So no administrative cost savings, no new savings from efficiencies. The long-term debt service would be still substantial, and just for the seismic upgrades of about $10.1 million per year, with only looking at Pioneers, distressed hospital loan repayment, that would be about $4.7 million per year for 6 years. The reduction in supplemental payments was not to occur in this scenario. Neither would the revenue increase due to increased reimbursement rates for a single hospital system, but the transfer of the Heffernan property tax base was assumed to occur under this scenario as well. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide represents the figures that went into the calculation of the existing or the estimated annual funding gap under option 1. And so we have the annual deficits of roughly $11 million for the two systems separately as a starting point. Then we looked at some combined administrative savings, again at 25%, about $4.4 million per year. The combined operating efficiencies, $13.3 million. The increased debt service of $12.2 million, plus the combined distressed hospital loan repayments of $9.3 million. The reduction in supplemental payments, $2.2 million. The potential revenue increases from the increased reimbursements for the single system serving the county, $5 million per year, and then the revenues from Heffernan Memorial. And I think if we can scroll just a little bit down, we can see, there we are, the annual funding gap. So during years 1 through 6, when those distressed hospital loan repayments are still happening, is estimated at $11.2 million. And then once those distressed hospital loan repayments are taken care of, then the annual funding gap from year 7 moving forward is estimated at just under $2 million for option 1. Next slide, please. So for option number 2, we're looking at just the annual funding gap for Pioneers. And again, no combined administrative savings, no combined operating efficiencies. We still have the debt service for the seismic upgrades at Pioneers, but we do not have debt service for the new IT system. There's the distressed hospital loan repayment for just Pioneers, $4.7 million per year for 6 years. We're not looking at the reduction in supplemental payments. We're not looking at the increase in revenue due to increased reimbursements. We have the $850 property tax shift from Heffernan, and that generates the annual funding gap from years 1 through 6, $15 million, and that reduces by $4.7 million per year once those distressed hospital loan repayments are completed for year 7 moving forward. What we're doing then is solving for what the annual parcel tax levy would need to be to close those annual funding gaps under the different scenarios. So the next slide, we can see the results for option number 1. For years 1 through 6, the total taxable parcels to spread that annual deficit of 11.2 million is about 80,000 countywide, and that averages out to $140 per year per parcel. In year 7 plus, once those distressed hospital loan repayments are completed, the annual deficit, of course, is significantly reduced. We still have roughly 80,000 parcels, and the average annual levy would need to be around $24 per parcel, so significantly lower once those distressed hospital loan repayments are completed. Next, for option number 2, you can see we have the larger deficit. We have a reduced number of taxable parcels. So in El Centro City, there's about 10,000 taxable parcels, so that reduces the available parcels in this reduced size district to about 70,000. And when you do math, you end up with an average annual parcel tax of about $215 per year to close that $15 million annual deficit. Again, just for years 1 through 6, while those distressed hospital loan repayments are being made. For year 7 plus, once the distressed hospital repayments are completed, that annual deficit drops down to about 10.3 million, and spread over the 70,000 parcels, you end up with an average annual tax per parcel of about $148. And that is the summary of the fiscal analysis. So I'm happy to answer questions that folks may have at this point in time. And
So can you?
Next slide is just our questions slide, I believe.
So in there you mentioned if the 3 ECRMC, PMH, and Heffernan combined, you talked about a 25% saving in overall costs. Can you explain those, like, in real time, like what they are, what positions, and where those savings would come from?
Any questions from the board for Madam?
So in there you gave, you talked about being able to save 25% on administration costs if the 3 El Centro, Pioneers, and Heffernan were to merge. Can you explain those and, like what are the real-time cost savings, where do those come from, and then a timeline for how long those savings would take to be implemented?
Sure. Yeah, so 25% was a rough estimate. Again, just looking at the administrative costs for the 2 hospital systems, El Centro and Pioneers, we totaled up the current expenditures and we reduced that by 25%. We did have some consultation with the leadership of both El Centro and Pioneers on this number, seeming to be about the right level. I will say that out of the total operations costs for the 2 districts is actually a very small proportion of those total expenditures. But the idea is that there are certain functions that would be duplicative if you took the 2 hospital systems and combined them, so that there could be some reductions there. In terms of the timing for needing to, or being able to implement that, this would be something that really would be determined by how quickly these integrations and consolidations were made. So
I don't think you really answered my question. Do you have like a breakdown of what these cost savings would be, or is this 25% just an estimate?
It's just an estimate. It was not done down to the budget line item. It was more of a broad, across-the-board assumption.
I have a question. Matt, this is Anola Berger. This report was based on expansion of Pioneers Memorial Hospital. It was not based on a dissolution of a hospital district. What would be the cost to start from ground zero in licensing, credentialing, new contracts, incorporation, MPI, you know, all of the things that you need to start a business with? Do you actually have a rough estimate on, I mean, is it like 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million? Do you have a number for that? Because I really, if you didn't base it on a dissolution of the district, there are some hidden costs in this report.
Yes, we did not look at it that way.
Okay, so there could be additional costs as well in both scenarios, correct?
So did you take into consideration when you did this that if you combined ECRMC and PMH that, you know, possibly you could move around services where you could, you know, so PMH wouldn't have to spend the $150 million or more to get into seismic compliance?
Yeah, that there was some discussion about how much ability there might be to avoid some of those costs, but ultimately the decision was made that we would account for a full upgrade of the facility with that $130 million expenditure level. So to the extent that there are ways to work around that and reduce the need for seismic upgrades in various facilities, then that would reduce the, of course, the capital costs, and then the debt service would also be reduced.
I have a quick question. Hi, Matt. This is James Garcia. When we talk about seismic retrofitting, are we talking about demoing and rebuilding new construct, or are we talking about retrofitting?
I believe there was some retrofit, but also some new construction.
But just to add on to that, Matt, this is James still. So that this is preliminary. Those numbers are very kind of soft numbers, right? We don't know how much we're going to retrofit or would be retrofitted, how much we new construction, and cost of numbers in that regard.
Yeah, I don't have the figures right in front of me, but they were based on a rough per bed cost. So yeah, it was a rough estimate based on the information available at the time we did this.
So also within the distressed hospital loan program, it's my understanding that those can be forgivable. It's in the agreements.
That has not been determined.
That's what I was relayed to by the state, that it could be.
It hasn't been determined.
But say they are forgiven, do you have those numbers?
Yeah, so again, for the two combined, the repayment amount needed is $9.3 million per year. So if they were forgiven, then that number, $9.3 million in this option one, could be reduced. And again, that's just for the 6-year repayment period. So by the time you get to year 7, we're assuming that those were done anyway. And that's when you have that much reduced. I think it was just under $2 million. That would certainly be helpful in the short term.
The comment in the chat.
Do you have any questions from the members of the public here? Please go to the podium.
Again, it's Stephanie, that's not Leanne. I know that we're just focusing on the seismic of what Brawley, the cost Brawley to retrofit. Okay. El Centro retrofit supposedly costing $110 million. What is your current debt right now? It's over 230. Okay, by the time we get consolidated, how much is it gonna be? You want to retrofit or start new construction in Raleigh? Our debt will be $150 million. Does it make sense? And look at how more efficient we've been at this time. So think about that. And Matt, hopefully you can come up with those numbers.
Keith Bradkowski. One of the things that I want to point out is if you look at the major consulting firms like McKinsey and Ernst & Young, when they do hospital mergers and acquisitions, pretty much the number comes up as consistently when you do a merger and acquisition of a hospital, if you take your total costs, you can predict that you're going to have, with the acquisition and merger, you can estimate you're going to reduce your overall cost by 15 to 25%, and that's being conservative. And that's the accepted value by consulting firms.
Hi, I'm Carly Buffer. I'm the CSO of Pioneers Hospital. I didn't meet you. Congratulations. I do have a question. The UCSD synergies of $7.5 million and the performance improvement from Kaufman Hall of $5 million. What's the details of those realistic and how quickly do they happen? Is it first year? Is it wait for 10 years? That's kind of my question for Matt.
Yeah, my understanding from just limited interaction that we had with Kaufman Hall is that some of those efficiencies might take some time to ramp up and be fully realized, but I don't believe they provided a specific time frame for that to occur.
So are you essentially saying that the data that you're presenting is essentially flawed because it doesn't have data from the Kaufman Hall study? So wouldn't that indicate that this was done a little premature?
Well, we had a very limited time frame to do our work, so we needed to do it with the information that was available at the time. To the extent that, with time passing, maybe Kaufman Hall is further along with their report. As I mentioned, we only had access to the executive summary in the time frame that we needed to do our work. So if there was additional information and detail and time allows, then we potentially could do some refining and updating of our model.
Chris Bjornberg, CEO at PMHD. A couple of questions I have for you. I'm looking at these numbers and I'm assuming based off of what you have here that this has no future value. Correct? As far as you're using today's numbers and projecting those out to be the same in year 7 and so forth. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's no inflation of costs or revenues here. It's all in constant dollars.
Okay. The other question that I would have for you based off of that is, well, the two assumptions, you used two options with key assumptions in there. One of them that I did not see that was presented that would have a pretty big swing on option number 1, for example. There is no key assumption in there or an option presented where El Centro declares bankruptcy. And I'm wondering why that wasn't put in there, because that is an option that should be on the table financially for this board in particular. They need to be able to see all of those options and make as it's stated, we have to do what's right for the community, not necessarily what's right for that bondholder or UCSD, but we have to do what's right for the community. And getting rid of that amount of liability would be a huge step forward in making this more sustainable for our community. Is there an option like that that you guys are going to provide to the board?
No, there is no plan in what we've done to look at an option like that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out, Chris. I really agree that the bankruptcy option should be on the table as well.
You have somebody on Zoom that wants to chat in? Go ahead, Pablo.
Just want to clarify that, Matt, we had a meeting with you and Kaufman Hall and LAFCO to go over the Kaufman Hall report. So the information that you're providing there about Kaufman Hall was accurate. And just to point out for Chris, ECRMC is not contemplating on going bankrupt. We are on track to be financially stable.
Next.
This is Nicholas Aguirre. I'm a board member at Pioneers Memorial Hospital. Okay, transparency is very important,
Can you
especially
just pick
for
up?
you.
They can't hear you.
Okay, transparency would be ideal for you as a board. The other thing is that in good faith, we should have El Centro on board. And it would make things a whole lot easier to know if they're coming on board or not. See, we're dealing with flawed numbers. If the whole 918 is great, especially in this area of dollars. Okay, we want to merge, but we need the facts when two entities merge. We need to know what the other entity is doing. Okay, we need to get into the dollar figures to be able to, as a board, look and analyze. Okay, but if in good faith El Centro doesn't come on board, you're going to have a lot of headaches, a lot of work that you're going to be involved with, because we still don't know if they're going to come on board. Okay, we waited for the assumptions with Kaufman Hall. They're flawed. We've lost a lot of times, a lot of time on this. Mr. Rodriguez comes up and says, let's get going. Let's get going. Well, we can't get going if we don't have transparency and we don't have numbers. Okay? As a board member, if I was in your shoes, I would want to know. Very important. Are they going to come on board? And what are the realistic numbers? Okay? I think the last meeting that we had, there was a $12,000 gain. Well, that doesn't pay, in El Centro, that won't pay our debt. Okay, so we need to come on board.
Matt, Rodolfo Valdez, where in this study is the property tax base for PMH?
So I did a little research on that, and my understanding is that PMH only had a property tax levy to service debt on bonds. And what the county auditor controller's office told me was that the sufficient funds that had been collected to pay off those bonds, and therefore no additional property tax levy was going to PMHD in the fiscal years moving forward. So we do not show any property tax revenue coming into PMHD that would be separate or in addition to this district-wide taxing district that we're talking about.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr.
Ryan Kelly, 448 Russell Road. To correct the record, Matt, there is an assessment for Pioneers Memorial Healthcare District similar to Heffernan, and it's at 0.08% of the 1% property tax levied in the district. So there is an ongoing, continual revenue that comes beyond the bond, either revenue or based on market. So wanted to make sure that was clear. Asked that the board take a very good look at what Ms. Santiago brought forward to you, that the county paid for mediation between all parties. We asked to be able to release that information, and El Centro and FNN refused to release that information. I'd ask that you see what that is, ask them to release it so that the public can see it as well.
Just to address Supervisor Kelly's comment, they never asked Kevin for anything, and we never denied that information. I am the administrator for Headland Memorial Healthcare District, and that information was never requested. So far, we provided that with all the information they ever asked for. So I just want to make sure that today we're on the same page. Thank you.
Sylvia Bernal, President of the Heckman Memorial. I want to do what Mr. Virgin has just said. I'm sitting here and it's a surprise to me to say that we didn't want to give out any information. It never came to our attention. We never voted on it. This is completely not true. Thank you.
Can I ask you though, if to be able to release the mediation needs to be signed, then you can take that to your board so we can get the information?
Sure.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I do have some questions. Matt, this is Art Proctor. Just a couple of questions. When you did your study, did you take into account any possible new contracts that were in the bubble when you made these calculations?
So we didn't get to that level. We were relying on information from Kaufman Hall on potential new revenues, potential savings and efficiencies, and so forth. So that 13.3 million kind of encompasses that kind of information, but that was beyond the scope of what we were doing.
Okay, then maybe you answered. Okay, so what about, earlier you mentioned per bed costs. Is that sort of like a span of control of per bed? Is that kind of like what it is, span of control? And if so, did you find whether you have more employees than you actually need? I know all of the hospitals bumped up their employee numbers because of COVID and things like that. But did your study take into account stabilization of those numbers? I know they don't use the traveling nurses as much anymore, so that's kind of my question.
Right. The per bed cost that I referred to was an estimate for the seismic improvements. So the per bed cost was not related to the operating costs. As far as changes in the staffing and so forth, again, that would be reflected in the Kaufman Hall figures. We did not get into making our own projections there other than this estimate of a potential 25% savings on the administrative functions.
Okay, and my last question, during our last meeting, we got information from the CEO from PMH that there's some sections of the structure itself, the facilities, that were either improved or remodeled without a county permit, building permit. So did you take into account those areas that may have to be retrofitted or improved on?
I did not have that information when I did our analysis.
Okay, thank you.
name is John Graff from Broward, California. I was looking at the increased debt service that you had listed there, annual debt service for $130 million capital cost for Pioneer seismic upgrades, $20 million for IT upgrades, and $9.3 million a year for the $56 million total distressed hospital loan. What I'm wondering about is where is the debt service for the existing bond debt obligations for El Centro Regional Hospital?
So their debt service is already embedded in their budget. So the annual change in net position that we identified factors that in. So if they did not have that debt service that they were providing every year, then their net change in position would be improved.
The other question I had regarding the $130 million for capital upgrades, that's a projected cost. So we're not sure exact figures. By the time that starts to happen, the figures are going to be different. I'm just wondering why we're having projected costs in there rather than actual costs.
Well, because we don't know what they are.
That's for Matt.
Ms. Rubin, can you mute yourself, please?
No, and they're talking about our retrograde down, 2030. Please mute.
Ms. Rubin, can you mute yourself,
And,
please?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, there was no construction bid or anything like that available to have a more detailed cost estimate for those seismic upgrades. So we needed to use an estimate.
Yeah, but the question is why we're using projected cost rather than actual cost. Present day figures, what it costs off, what it costs of. We're interjecting something that's happening in the future when we're trying to evaluate current status of hospitals. So I'm wondering why we're injecting projected costs or future costs that have not been incurred yet.
The understanding is that those seismic upgrades need to be done, and that would be a part of the long-term cost structure of the consolidated hospital district, so we included the cost for the debt service on those upgrades.
So based on that, then we wouldn't need another bond issue to fund the upgrade because the tax assessment would have that already built in?
No. A bond issue would be necessary to raise the funds to do the seismic upgrades, and then there would be debt service to pay off those bonds, which we've reflected in our calculations. And when we add those annual debt service amounts into the whole equation, we end up with an annual deficit. In this case, you can see in option 2, we're looking at right now, there we go, 15 million annual deficit. So that includes the debt service, and then we calculate what that parcel tax is that needs to be made to support that annual deficit, of which a good component of that is the debt service on the seismic upgrades.
Okay. Another question is the UCSD synergies, $7.5 million per year. Is that the medical records management system, or what exactly is that?
Yeah, as I understand it, a combination of efficiencies from the records management system. That's why the IT upgrades were necessary to realize that portion of the benefits, but also the ability to kind of optimize the service delivery, as well as retaining additional patient services that had been leaking out of the county. So it's a number of factors that added up to that figure.
So the assumption is that this board here would continue to do business with UCSD.
That's what we modeled.
One final question. A lot of what you're saying is based on estimates, and you're saying also that if you had more time to do research, you could probably do a lot more detailed analysis. If your scope of work was expanded to broaden your evaluation, would you be able to provide the board with a much more detailed, specified estimate of the figures?
We could certainly do refinements. I would want to make the board aware that my specialty is not getting into fine details on hospital operations and so forth. That's where we're relying on information provided by the 2 hospital districts and their consultants to feed into our model. So I'm not certain that if you're thinking about how to get this more detailed, more fine-grained, that we're really in the best position to do that versus other people that are much more specialized and focused in this hospital realm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I think what it's safe to say is that this board needs both hospitals to be very transparent and give somebody, whether it be Bay, whether it be Kaufman Hall, all of the data to be able to do this, because bad data is worse than no data. And I think we have holes in this study, and so we need everybody to come together to do that. That way this board can have an unbiased opinion and a very realistic and transparent opinion of this is what's going to happen and this is what it's going to cost. That way we can make the best decisions possible.
The last co-chair wants to comment.
Complete information.
I just had a quick question. If, or when the Kaufman Hall study will be made available?
Mr. Oliva, do you have an answer to that question?
So my understanding is that the representatives from the Kaufman Hall study will be physically present at your next meeting to present fully the Kaufman Hall report.
Just one more comment. I was under the impression that they would be present today along to present their, that's shown on the agenda.
So initially, we had planned on them to present, but they were only available via Zoom. And as the board chair, I made the executive decision to have them to punt it another 2 weeks, because I think they need to be in person to present so we can have questions, we can be engaged and get the best information possible, because this is a very important study and I prefer it not to be done over Zoom.
Great, thank you.
Thank you again, Ryan Kelly, 448 Russell Road, Northern California. I do want to be able to share with you a status update that occurred on September 27th of 2023 in regards to the mediation and asking all entities to be able to share the findings. Pioneers, LAFCO, and the County of Imperial all agreed. Communication was sent with a response from El Centro Regional, Mr. Cesenia, that I see that you have a nice day, no official response. Heffernan, Mr. Bridgman said will do, but did not respond the affirmative to release. Assemblymember Garcia, correct, we haven't received any reply from them. And Judge Pappas, who was the mediator, could not release the mediation due to not having all parties in the meeting. So if Mr. Virgin had forgotten, or if Gloria never heard about it, they were all communicated through County Council and by Judge Pappas, asking and requesting that information.
So I just have a question, Mr. President. So if one party says no, then the whole answer is no, correct?
Those are the terms.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments before we move on to the next item?
I'd just like to comment that the question arose whether we would be using the UCSD model in the future, whether that's what we intend to do. At the last meeting, I brought up that I think for the benefit of all of our patients, right, in the entire community, our population, that I think competition is good. So if USD and Scripps, and I even offered up, there's another entity out by Palm Desert, which would be Eisenhower, that, hey, have everybody come and talk, because we're going to do what's best for Imperial County and all of our people here. So I know PMH uses Scripps and El Centro uses UCSD, but how about having another player in the game so that we can get the best health care and that they can pony up whatever resources they have to help us out. So
My concern was this would tie your hands in negotiations. So this would tie your hands to be able to get that competition.
So again, these are the things that we're exploring for the benefit of the people. So these are all the things that we're all thinking about all the time. What is it that we can do? What's out there that we have never used in the past? That's all.
If I may, just a point of clarification, we're a Scripps affiliate at PMHD, which means that's usually where, being a smaller entity, we go and we work with them. We actually pay them to be able to have access to policies and do things like that and get those type of things. There's no agreements outside of that. It's much different where UCSD is managing the day-to-day stuff for El Centro. So to that point, Mr. Velez made a comment in one of his opinions that he put out to the entire county that we have to do what's best for the county. We have to stop with all the other stuff, and I agree with him 100%. We have to do what's best for our county. And to remove the bankruptcy off of the table that he just mentioned, in my opinion, is not the best for the county, because the county in this meeting, IBHD, is going to take an entity which we see in the hole, $9 million, all consistently, very consistently, and we're going to take that and try to put it into a situation where we're going to try and make it whole with all the other moving parts that are associated with that. And that doesn't work. You see that there's a consistency with his numbers just based off of this report, and I know that those are very loose, but some of those other numbers are very real. So in order to basically rule that out, I think is a disservice to the community, because why would you bring bad in to a new entity that's trying to provide healthcare for an entire community and put us well behind the 8 ball from the beginning? So to take it off the table, I don't think he's being true to his word that we got to do what's best for the community, because that's not what's best for the community. Excuse me, for the community, that's what's best for a number of other players out there, not the community.
Madam Chair, board members, my name is Tomas Oliva. I am the board president of DCRC. I had no intention of coming up to speak to you, but I just have to say it's becoming very uncomfortable to see where the conversation is going, because first and foremost, to hear that bankruptcy must be on the table is to be completely insulting and disrespectful to the employees of DCRC. So I'm here to say that is not fair. It's not fair to essentially be advocating for something that you're not even there yet for, right? We have pensions that employees have paid into to ECRC, so to suggest that you have to go into BK is to say screw them. We have to do what's right for maybe other parts of the region, but not the employees of ECRC. So I personally take to great offense of our employees to sit here and listen to people advocating for that. Now, secondly, I think what's required of AB 918 is to first and foremost choose a date for the dissolution of PMH and Heffernan and do that. And then discuss the acquisition of ECRC. We're not on the chopping block right now to be discussing what is thought is needed to have for ECRC, right? That comes later. But this consolidation that's happening, this discussion of consolidation is code for pick a date, figure out when the two entities are gonna transfer the keys over to this body, right? Transfer over the tax ID, transfer over the reimbursement code numbers from the state and the federal government, like all that stuff needs to come here. And then at some point in the future, we will have the hard discussion of how we can transfer over ECRC and there's an acquisition of that, should that be the case. But make no mistake, you talk about BK from ECRC, you're saying screw the employees, screw other vendors that are gonna get paid. And what makes you think that if it gets bankrupt, that IDHD gets to pick it up? Somebody else can pay for it and pick it up too. So there's a dangerous pathway that goes down that mindset that it's not guaranteed and given going down that road that then you get to just pick it up. So I wanted to be very clear about that and very cautious, because if your motive and your objective here is to talk about a actual consolidation, unification, merger of all the healthcare systems of Imperial County for the betterment of every single resident, regardless of where you live in this county, then I would just raise that flag and be cautious about the route that this conversation is going, and to stay the task. So thank you.
See, this is what's causing a delay right now. Okay. There's no transparency. We can't get those numbers from El Centro. Okay, this is what's happening. Saying this is what we agree with. We're not doing justice to the law 918. But we want transparency. We want to merge. We do, for the good of the whole. But there's no information coming from El Centro Regional Medical Center. Even the Hoffman report, as you see, we've been trying to ask for that for a year, over a year, and we haven't done it. And today, it's still flowing. Okay, so we're saying yes. We don't want the hospital to default. Okay, but it's a huge dollar amount. I kind of said 300 million. You know, by the time we get to going and letting you have the realm, okay, it's going to be big. There's no way to get out of that. Okay, so we need to be transparent. We need to find out that El Centro is going to hop on board. That's very important.
When you say the numbers, can you be more specific on what numbers you're referring to?
The retirement fund, that's the problem. What kind of expenses are being incurred within the operation of the facility? What do the contracts for the physicians look like? Is it they're going to incur more costs as we get together? Let's merge, but we need transparency. We need that information. You need that information.
Can you make sure that Pioneers provides all of that as well?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to make the comment that that it was asked of Heffernan, for the board president from Heffernan to take that, to take that back to her board to request that information be released. So in all, fairness, I would say, Mr. Oliva, I would like to task that, for you to take that back to your board and provide, or consider releasing that information, because I do believe it is of the utmost importance that we all are apprised of the most amount of information that we can get, so that we can be truly transparent and make the best decision possible for the totality of the citizens here. And so I would just like to, in all fairness, throw that back to you and ask that you take that to your board and consider releasing that information.
Let the record show thumbs up, yes.
Thank you.
Catalina Santillon again, and I am the board president for Pioneers Memorial Hospital. And one of the things that Mr. Olivas just said right now, that it was very unfair of what was happening right now in El Centro. And that, you're talking about affecting at least less than 2,000 people. But is it fair to put this burden on over 150,000 residents of Imperial County for a mistake that they did? No, we want you to do your due diligence. Ask for all the reports and bank because you are asking. That's the problem that we have, that we can't get that participation. You ask us for numbers, we'll give you. Tell us the details you want, we'll give you everything that you need. We have to be transparent. That's the only way things are going to work. If one buys time and delays, well, that just hurts everything in what you're doing right now. And it just appears that we're trying to do the best. But this is what we've been going for a year. And every time that Mr. Valdez said we have met with them, with El Centro Hospital, we're going to turn it. This has been going for a year, turning. It hasn't turned. 1 year in November, they lost $400,000. Everything else has been $1.7, $2 million. Up to now, we still lost last month, over $1 million. So all we hear is just talk. Let's get the facts together. That's what you need to do, and thank you because you are asking. And we just want fair game for everybody. That's it, for the whole county, not just for El Centro, for everybody. Thank you.
Can I please address the board, please?
Yes.
So, I hear a lot about transparency and providing information. My question is, where was Pioneer Memorial Hospital when we were conducting the Kaufman Hall study that we multiple times asked for data, asked for information, never provided a complete set of the information to Kaufman Hall. The Kaufman Hall report is partial because of that fact that Pioneer never wanted to provide accurate data to and partial data to Kaufman Hall. When you talk about bankruptcy, Chris, you don't even know, and you haven't even seen our books or even know about our turnaround plan. So I take offense to you getting up on the podium there and talk about bankruptcy when you don't have knowledge of the ins and out and operation of CRMC. And if we're going to be transparent, everybody has to be transparent and play the same game. Thank you.
Madam President, may I say something?
Yes.
This is Linda Rubin, Raleigh, California. When the Kaufman report is going to be spoken about in 2 weeks, is that going to be an open session?
Yes, my understanding is that it will be presented in open session.
Okay, that's great. That's good news. I heard there was a lot of NDAs going around regarding the Kaufman report, so I just wanted to be clear that it would be public information. Thank you.
We got one more. Chris A.
Yes, I think what's pretty evident from what we've seen tonight and issues around the release of the Kaufman Hall study is that it would be very beneficial for the IVHB to commission its own study, its own independent study, and to receive all the appropriate information. And I would urge that any analysis also look at the human capital. Specifically, when we talk about cost efficiencies, we have to recognize that consolidation does mean potential job loss and potential negative impacts on physician, clinician, and employee retention and recruitment. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have one question for Matt before he logs off. Matt, just based on is he still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Matt, just based on the inconsistencies that were found or the misinformation that's here within this report, are you confident in the numbers that you've presented to us? And is this the most comprehensive report that can be provided to this board based off of the information that was stated here today?
Well, I think there has been some potentially new information that was at least suggested this evening by various parties that we did not have at the time we prepared our report. I'm confident that we did the best job we could with the information we had in hand at the time we did prepare the report. And as I said, if there is additional information, we potentially could make refinements to that analysis, but we don't have that information yet.
Thank you.
So Matt, I have a question. I wanted to know, on your cover sheet, everything is projected, so they're not true hard numbers, correct?
Right. These are estimates. The only hard numbers that we have are the numbers that come from the published budget documents.
Okay, so like the UCSD synergies and the performance improvement and out negation, all of those are actually just projected, or where did you get that information from? From the Kaufman Hall, or was that?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And so obviously we need the Kaufman Hall to, kind of compare your report with their report to make sure that the numbers are true, correct? And then also,
yes, that would be appropriate.
and also too, I think that we definitely need to figure in the number of a dissolution versus an expansion, because that is going to be an added cost as well.
Well, I think, Ms. Berger, the actual AB 918 requires a dissolution.
Yes, it requires a dissolution, but this report is done an expansion.
Okay.
So it doesn't have cost in it
Yeah,
for the dissolution.
understood.
And so therefore, there are a lot more debt coming our way.
Yeah.
Okay, so we just need a comprehensive report, because if you look at this report, it's not really true numbers because it's an expansion, not a dissolution. And that's my concern, because the dissolution is going to cost a lot.
And to your point, I believe that was the point that I was trying to make, as this is, these numbers are very hypothetical,
Yes,
and
they
they
are.
are not, I don't believe that they would even be in the ballpark if we're really,
We definitely
comparing
need
apples to
a
apples.
detailed report, to compare, but also too, I think I do agree that maybe we possibly do need to ask for our own feasibility study.
I agree.
So no more comments, correct?
Just one comment, just to remind you that, since you're asking for the reports, please ask for the Scott Phillip report. And I don't remember what the name of the company is, Scott Phillip.
Preston Hollow.
Preston,
No, that's the bond.
no.
Preston Hollow, Scott Phillips.
I guess we call it the bond holder, Scott Phillips worked for.
Somebody did, that's the.
That's Scott Phillips, he has a nice report on the bankruptcy.
Okay, so now we're gonna move on to item C, discussion actions, directors and officers liability insurance update.
Yes. So we just speak to Beta, they sent us an application. And that application is, we have it, we'll fill it out in the next couple of days, so I'll need your help in filling it out. And we can send it to them. And that's for Beta to provide the DNO insurance.
Well, we'll be able to have DNO insurance by our next meeting to get this filled out by the end of the week.
Well, that's a question I'll ask them, yes, I hope so. Yes.
Moving on to item D.
Madam Chair, did we discuss item D?
Oh, you're right, sorry. So that was item C, yeah. We'll move on to item B, discussion action association of California Healthcare District membership application costs.
So that conversation with Michelle from ACHD, and their recommendation was that Prime List is renewing their membership in April sometime, I believe. And she said they're gonna try to lump us with them for the reason that that they're the biggest district locally right now. And that they're gonna try to put it together so they can give us a better rate, because we don't have any assets yet. So it's hard for them to quantify what it is just for our membership. I did remind her that Heffernan is also very small, and that we do have a membership. So a conversation that's still pending where they're looking at their structure to find out if they could do us as independent or they can bundle us with pioneers and work something out. So that's, they told me that they'll get back to us on that, what that figure is gonna be, hopefully by the next meeting. But they projected the longest range would be when pioneers.
Any questions from the board? Yeah. Now we'll move on to item B, discussion and or action, discussion of general counsel legal services, authorized request for proposals for legal services.
So, yeah, I believe that we sent out we started talking about getting an RFP ready. I know Mr. Rivera was working on a document, but we also had a discussion with ourselves about needing legal sooner rather than later. And obviously that having legal on board would help us get us a better grip on the timelines and all these legal issues that are going on, getting a lot of clarity, and at the same time helping us have something in the interim when we move forward and find the RFP.
And I just want to note that Procopio will not be assisting in writing the RFP for the record.
They'll be able to bid, but they won't be active in the process of developing the RFP.
Any other questions, comments? No? Okay, move on to item E, discussion and or action request for proposals for chief financial officer for IDHD.
The same thing, I think that we could go through our legal team to get the RFP going and define how much of a CFO do you want, right? Do you want somebody to help interpret all this data? Do we need to get a forensic accountant to come in and delve into all the mathematics of this and other studies? That way you just, we get numbers from a different source? Or is there something that we can work with the local CFOs to do it? At some point we did draft a document, kind of like an NDA, confidentiality agreement for those. And at the time, one of the parties didn't want to do them because they said we'd wait till IVHD asked for them and then we could report them to them. So in order to develop the RFP, we just need to find out the job description more or less, or how much of a CFO do you want, right? And is that a full-time CFO, part-time, and what their scope of work is? So that's something that I think that we could define what that is and ask legal to write the RFP for that, if that's okay.
I think right now, what we first need to do is take have somebody that collects all the data. And I think the two CFOs at the hospital, we can do it. That way we can do a feasibility study of our own. Maybe before we hire a CFO, we use ECRMCs and PMH's CFOs.
I would actually like to see if you are doing, asking the two CFOs to compile the data, it's all the same formula. It's not his formula and her formula. It would be all the same, so those are apples, and not oranges and apples, okay? So I would like that. And also too, I think that as far as hiring a CFO, maybe that CFO could be a consulting company, is like Warburg or, someone who actually audits hospital operations, and that way they know everywhere where to look versus, a CFO, I know they have the numbers and stuff, but if you had someone from a consulting company that actually audits everything that's going on in the hospital and identifies deficiencies, I think that would be better than just like a total CFO. So maybe you can find someone, that does both. That would be great. So Warburg did really well with us. So.
And just running off what the chair said, I think that nobody knows Pioneer's functions better than their CFO.
Yeah.
And I would dare to say that from the ECRMC side, their CFO can get it. And if we can get them together to work together and get us those numbers and those formulas,
yes,
we can get away from this very ambiguous projections from bad data. Because when you project it out, you're way off on the results, and I think that.
Right, I think that it all should be the same data, not too different.
Yeah, I agree with that, because when they're, that way you can put they're both when you put them side by side, then you can actually compare and see where they're at.
Exactly. So you get the true numbers.
So do you want to have Tomas work with legal to get an RFP out for like a consulting firm?
Yeah, it's like a job description, yeah, consulting firm.
Okay, so like a statement of work, essentially.
And what about the CFOs also doing the data? Is that something separate or working in conjunction with the?
Working in conjunction, yeah.
I believe they should, yeah.
Mhm.
I
The
believe they should
consultant
work
working with
both-
the CFOs.
Work with both CFOs and then have the consultants as the third set of eyes to
To look at everything.
look at everything.
And
that's
to
brought
say
in.
that we need this data, we need this data.
Exactly.
You know, they can't pick and choose the data.
I agree.
Yes.
So maybe this person, like consulting firm that we hire would almost be like a mediator between the two,
Could be.
essentially. Like the middle person. Okay. So, do you have a motion to give Mr. Virgin direction?
I make a motion to hire, or look into hiring a consultant for that purpose.
To create a job
Just
statement of work.
Job, yeah, statement of work.
To create a statement of work to bring back to this board to present at the next.
Yeah. Is that still my motion?
Yes, you make your motion.
I make a motion to create the job statement.
Okay. Do I have a
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Do we have any items for future agenda? Item 11, I know next, we have the Kaufman Hall presentation. I think that's gonna take up a bulk of time. You know, I would hate to be here till 9 o'clock like we did last time.
But I
We
do,
overloaded it.
yeah, I do want to make it clear to the Kaufman Hall report that I want to see the full report. I want to see the work that was done and the items that were, the data that was identified. You know, I don't want to see a summary. You know, I want to see the actual numbers and what data was used. I don't want to see like that executive summary, you know, just kind of gives you these numbers. And so I think that definitely we would need to see the whole report, not just what they want to show us.
I agree. I think that has led us down the path that we're currently on, and the executive summary has not, it's done us more of a disservice than anything at this point.
Yes.
So I am in agreement that we see the whole study, and I'm also in agreement that we keep the next agenda short, so that we have time for public comment. And so our public comments can be made and we can get answers to the questions while we have them here in the room.
And Tomas, will we be meeting here again the next 2 weeks, or will that be someplace else? Because the agenda didn't get out in time, you know, for everyone, because I mean, it was supposed to be 48 hours. I think that it was posted Tuesday. Or the
Special
meeting.
meetings have
Yeah.
different.
24 hours.
24 hours?
Yes.
Okay, but I mean, I just feel that we knew that we were going to meet, so therefore I feel that the agenda needs to be out
Yeah.
in a little bit earlier time so people can plan their evenings.
Well, once we have our regular scheduled meetings, I think that's one of the things that the board should give direction is, number one. We did talk to the county today, and they want to know what regular dates and times we want, so they could find a space. And the county board of supervisors place. So, but once we get to the special meetings and decide on what's going to be our regular meeting dates, that doesn't mean that we can't have special meetings or emergency meetings.
Right.
It just means that for your regular scheduled meetings, if you do it the first, second, or third Thursday of every month, whatever you decide, knowing that you can always make changes, right? But they just want a special date so they could find out if they could squeeze us in at that time.
Well, I just would like to make sure that everyone knows the location and the date,
Yes.
every time.
Yeah. And so does the county.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just a reminder, we did in the first meeting talk about having the roving location or changing the locations throughout the county, just to give anyone and everyone an opportunity to attend those meetings if they are unable to travel to a different area of the county. So keep in mind that, we do need to have a regularly scheduled meeting, but we also do not need to lock ourselves into a singular location. Just keep it available.
Alright. So I think at our first meeting, we talked about the second Thursday of the month. So the second Thursday of March would be March 14th. And do we want to do 6 p.m. again? Okay, so our next, I'm going to adjourn this meeting until.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt, I know I'm not a member of the board, I noticed that you have a looming July 1 deadline for the redistricting issue, and I'm wondering whether it would make sense for me to work with Tomas to get some proposals together for consultants so that the board can entertain that, if not at the next meeting, because it will be a long agenda at the perhaps following meeting, just so that we can get that ball rolling. And I just mean bringing in proposals or ideas for the board, just as a matter of an agenda item.
As our next meeting, if you could bring that back.
Great.
That would be great. And then also a roadmap that we had talked about for resolving both districts and what needs to happen.
You've got it.
Prior to the deadline. So pretty much essentially a whole roadmap to implement AB 98.
You've got it.
Thank you. So work for everybody.
Just a quick question or suggestion. For the sake of efficiency for the next meeting, could it be possible to have the Kaufman Hall report posted on the website so that questions can be formulated, crystallized, save time?
Yeah, it should be posted within the 72 hours for the round.
Thank you.
And with that, do we have any comments from the board?
So when's our next meeting?
March 14th at 6 p.m.
I do.
I have.
Okay, go for it.
So first of all, I'd like to thank everybody here that came to the meeting. I really appreciate it. Our learning curve is decreasing and decreasing every time we meet. I know that we all go out and read things and try to learn as much information. I really appreciate all the information you all bring. At the last meeting, I brought up the question of whether we have any EEO violations. And the reason I brought that up is because there's a lot of chatter in the public. And I'll tell you, the frontline people are the ones that, like we're talking about the BK situation, the bankruptcy, the people in the front line are the ones that are impacted the most. And one of the issues I brought up last time was the fact that because we are in an industry that has a lot of people of power, in this case it being administrators or doctors, sometimes a lot of things are not talked about. But in the spirit of transparency, I know that what we're doing is working, and I'll tell you why. I've had several people that reached out to me that weren't at this meeting last time on the topic of the EEO that said that something that needs to be addressed, just industry-wide, is these violations of EEO. Mostly inappropriate sexual innuendo comments, actions, etc. And to give you an example, one of the examples they gave me, which I was floored, said that a female doctor that has privileges at PMH at some point brought a personal sex toy, put it on the counter, and basically said, I'm tired of this plastic and I need some real DI, you know what. That type of behavior at this time of our lives and everything that we're going through, to put employees through that kind of I just, so that was one situation. I asked whether that was reported, and the person said no. The reason it wasn't reported is because they were afraid of retribution, reprisals, all the above. And so I don't know who that doctor is. I don't know. But frankly, I don't care. So that being said, we need to protect our employees, whether they're male, whether they're female. We haven't even discussed the discrimination issues. That's a whole different matter. But if we don't have strong whistleblower policies within these entities, then we're never going to know what is truly behind what's going on in these hospitals. And the only way we're going to be able to take care of our employees is if we as a board, knowing that there's a lot of issues like that are swept under the rug or people don't talk about, that we start protecting our employees. So I would love to review the whistleblower policies for all three entities so that we can look at them, and if we need to strengthen them or combine them or just make them better so that our employees aren't worried about things like that. I would also like to see from all three entities all of their EEO policies so we can review them. Those kinds of things are ever changing. They're always adding more and more protections, especially ADA protections and things like that. So I would really love to review those things. So if there is a way that at some point we can prevent by letting the public know, especially the employees at all the campuses, that type of behavior is not going to be tolerated at all. Zero tolerance. And furthermore, if that type of behavior comes up in the future, once we are a district, that we strengthen our contract policies with people, like I said, in administrative jobs or doctors, etc., so that if there is an instance of behavior, that we cancel their contracts, period, with no severance, none of that. None of this special treatment we're not gonna be providing special treatment for doctors, is all I'm saying, or administrators. Again, in the spirit of protecting our employees. That's all I have.
Madam Chair, I have one thing that we do need to bring up, because I think, are we giving direction to staff to work with legal on our policies and procedures and the things that this Imperial Valley Healthcare District needs to have, because some of that will be addressed in our own policies and procedures, whether we're going to take them from Raleigh, take them from El Centro, and meld them into ours. But right now, we need to have a backbone, AB 918 and name only, so we need some infrastructure. So I would like to see that be like at the top of the list somewhere.
And what I can do is when I bring back the roadmap to the board meeting in 2 weeks, I'll have a proposed deadline date for establishment of policies, and I'll roll them out. I'll name my recommended policies, starting with, for example, rules and regulations of the board, or stuff that you kind of need right away, and maybe put like a couple at a time on a timeline, so that the board can discuss them and see if they want to move them around, move some up, move some down. If they notice any are missing or think some are unnecessary at this time, we won't do them. So that way you have a timeline of proposed events with respect to not just AB 19, but policies. I'll do that.
And my request is that on your roadmap, you have the cost for each item. It's going to cost
A budget.
The budget, yes.
You got it.
How much for, the dissolution, how much for the CFO or the consultant. So we need to look at those costs as well. So if you, on your roadmap, if you can put those costs as well. And then, on the dissolution, you actually probably should have a list of, all of the items that will need to be done to create that new district.
Right.
Okay? And maybe a timeline, because we can't cut off our district until the new district is functional. So
Yep, you got it.
it's going to create chaos if we cut it off too soon.
Yes. Alrighty. Anybody comment?
I just have a question also. I have a ton of questions, to be honest with you, but as far as continuing service to our community, we need to talk I think, to our hospitals also as to make sure all the licenses are in place, all the contracts are in place, so there's a continuous flow of service as well. Do we have a plan for that?
I think that's in the
I would say,
dissolution.
Yeah, that's the roadmap for, dissolution. I think that's why we really need to get legal and counsel. That way we can start making those decisions and see what we need, see when, how long the process and everything will take.
Yeah, because you have to have the state of California and CMS involved as well, because all that has to be re-inspected and re-licensed.
And maybe the hospitals can let us know too, hey, by the way, this license here, the license is better than we do. If you wait too long on this, or whatever the ins and outs may be, please bring it to our attention so that we know, so we can keep an eye on that and take action on that, and make sure that nothing slips through the cracks.
There's also a lot of grandfathering with both hospitals as well, so you know what will be the cost when that's lost as well.
Yes. Okay. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
With the right of this
Thank
meeting
you for
at
attending on
8:08.
Zoom as well. Thank you.
Thank you.